with my co-host, the one and only, the other half of the Jamie and Joe show, Joe Messino. And we have a very special guest all the way from sunny Florida, Dr. Len Bransowitz. We're so excited to have you back, Len. I know you were on this morning. We had a tremendous amount of views. So welcome back to the roundtable.
Good. Glad to be here, guys. Look forward to it.
We're excited. We're going to talk about some of the GI case studies because, he is the gut guy.
He's the gut guy.
I even saw a picture of him. Looks like the gut guy. I don't know if it was a Halloween costume or what, but I know what he's dressing as next year.
Yeah, we got to try to find that picture. Get it up.
And I just want to thank Dr. Len for being so generous with his time and his 40-plus years of experience. He tell you what, he brought it home at the professional training event recently in Tampa, Florida. It was on how to get lit from the inside out, the 11 Pillars of Health with Dr. Lisa Coach. I talked about quality, and then me and Len did the tag team, and he brought all his expertise and his top 5 clinical case studies, and it was very well received. People want to see you again, Len. So whatever this thing you call retirement, we're redefining that word for you.
Let's call it semi. Because I'm still doing consults. I'm still talking to patients. I had 2 already today. So, I still have a passion to do that. So I haven't.
You probably experienced the same thing my dad did. He retired at a young age after about a year of being home with my mom. He says, okay, that was cool. I'm going back to work. Part-time, but I'm going back to work. And he did. He said that was the biggest, one of the regrets was retiring too young, especially when you love what you do. So welcome back, Len. I want to talk about a couple of things. I just got a phone call. And, you talk about GI health. So this young gentleman had ulcerative colitis about 5-6 years ago. So he came to see me. I don't do consults except for a friend or someone I know. And I put him on. First, I found out a couple things from his diet. He was 17. He was doing a lot of milk for the protein. And his diet wasn't very good. He thought it was good, but we know it wasn't. It was very irritating to the intestinal tract to the point that he was suffering from colitis. Well, fast forward a few years later, I get a call from a mutual friend saying, hey, did you talk to so-and-so? His kid's not doing good. Try to get him back in here. Finally got him back in here. Just talked to him again. And he just had colon resection surgery. So right now, the young man at 22 has a colostomy bag. And he said, don't worry, they're going to reattach it. And he says, this is a very successful surgery. Even the surgeon told him.
Of course he did.
Because the surgeon had the same thing. So can we talk about back up? Because this is, I'm sweating because it's really defeating when you hear this, right? 22-year-old. I understand they're scared, right?
Right.
And they're concerned with colon cancer. But there's no turning back from this type of therapy. I mean, when you go for the surgery, there's no turning back. So
what's this reattaching stuff?
Well, he's got a bag right now. They got to reattach the colon. So at least,
And that's 6 hours.
Well, so the problem with that reattachment surgery is that about 80% of the time you end up with scar tissue. So that impedes that section of the colon, and you tend to get blockages. Dear friend of Joe and I, the farmer down the street, just got out of the hospital.
Oh, Pete, really?
Just got out of the hospital.
Well, easy with this.
He had that same surgery Jamie acknowledged probably 3 or 4 years ago, and just recently went back in. He was having all kinds of difficulties. He was in the hospital for a week, and they flushed him out using laxatives because he just kept having blockage after blockage after blockage.
Wow.
And
is that due to scar tissue?
All scar tissue, and it took place 2 years later. So this friend of yours, Jamie, is going to have to watch because there's going to be an impedance at that spot in the colon for the rest of his life. So he's going to need. Joe and I had a really good discussion about cytokines and how important those are. When you look at GI health, ulcerative colitis, whatever, I still say it starts upstairs in the brain. Joe and I talked about stress levels and the vagus nerve and all of that. You got to get that squared away. And this poor kid at a very early age has got to be stressed out to the max, just thinking about what he's been through. And look what you just said. He's bought into the medical mind that says, well, we'll do the reattachment. You'll be good to go.
Yeah, you talk about stress. When I met him, he was a star high school basketball player, had a scholarship for college, And you fast forward to now, he quit the basketball team and college, and he's selling insurance, and he's depressed and miserable. So you're right. That's why I said, no wonder he's stressed out.
Yeah.
I said, who wants to sell insurance at any age, let alone 20? And what happened to the basketball career?
Yeah, gone.
Exactly.
Gone. His physical impairment stopped that. And that was all due to his, to the approach and the lifestyle.
So, Len, can you back up a little bit? I know your history and experience in not only nutraceutical but pharmaceutical. How do we get to that point? So you mentioned stress as one of the key variables that can contribute to this. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, Joe and I talked about it in that first hour that we did about, how to control stress in your life, and, Jamie, you and I talk about it all the time, when we're feeling that pressure, and you get it, Jamie, owner of a company that, all you're going through, and it could be something as small as, you don't want to downplay it, losing my basketball career. You can't just click your finger and make all that stress go away. So because the brain is so controlling of what goes on in the gut, unless you get that straight, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. So, Joe asked me a question in that first hour. You laid out particular parameters. Say, do this for 7 to 10 days, do this for 2 weeks, do this for 2 weeks. Why? Well, it's amazing because the more you study the human body as God created it, you have to take it through, you have to hold its hand and walk it through various tiers. So if we talk about, we'll use this young boy as an example. You got to do an assessment of his stress levels. Talk to him, journal with him, figure out what it is that's pushing his buttons. Okay. And if it's off, or you have to do neurotransmitter testing, whatever. If it's off and I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed, one of my go-tos has been Calm Day. Start him on Calm Day. And again, as I layered out the protocol, 7 to 10 days. Well, what about the GI Complete? I said, let's work on getting the stress under control the best we can. Talk to him, motivate him, calm it down, 1 to 4 Calm Day a day. See how he feels gut-wise on the other side of that. The second tier, I layer in, and Joe and I had a nice talk about when I use the powder versus the capsules, but I typically would go with the GI Complete powder, okay, morning and evening. Why? Because most of the healing time for anybody with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, just IBS, takes place overnight. So if we
That's a great point, Len.
Calm down today, give them a second dose, maybe right after dinner in the evening, so that gets a chance to go in and calm down the digestive system. Again, a 7-day window. So now you've started with a Calm Day, GI Complete. Now you're at about 14 days. Reassess. Let's talk. What's gone better? Anything gotten worse? What's going on right now? And this is typically the point where if he still says, oh, I still get some gurgling after meals, we've given him an anti-inflammatory diet, we've taken away offensive foods. Now is when I make that big transition into the IgGs. Okay. Now I'm out here. I'm at 14 days. I'm still sticking with the GI Complete morning and evening. Now I'm adding the IgG powder to that. Why? Because the research piece that I gave earlier today said you add that IgG, it enhances the really good Bacteroides form of good bacteria in the gut. So instead of battling and just dumping in probiotics left and right, you've got to settle it. So we're letting the brain work, we're letting the gut work, and now we're adding an ingredient in there that can really go into the colon and start saying, okay, good bacteria, fire it up, fire it up, fire it up. Now we're starting to see some improvement. Phase 3, out here at about 21 days. I'll layer in the Saccharomyces, the SBC. I'll open up the caps, dump it into the mix, and I'm doing that morning and evening. So now I've got GI Complete, IgG, Saccharomyces, and I'll continue that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, till I'm starting to see the complete turnaround in that person. I'm start feeling good. Anywhere along that line, I will add Cybezymes. because if we're still getting some gurgling or some upper GI problems, we're going to have to add that digestive enzyme. Now, that sounds like a lot, but if you've ever suffered with Crohn's, IBS, ulcerative colitis, you'll do anything in
Well,
the world to try
it's a nice way that you're layering it in too, so that you are taking care of the stress, which is one of the things that is often neglected for
Sure it is.
anything.
I mean, think about spastic colon. That's a stressed colon.
Mm-hmm. So,
So, what dose on the Cyberzyme do you like to recommend?
I'm sorry, you said, well, how many of them?
Yeah, what dose on the Cyberzyme caps from
I would
Nutritional
typically do
Frontiers?
one before breakfast, one before lunch, one before dinner, and one after dinner. So I'll do it. They call it AC, PC dose with dinner. So I'll gentle with breakfast, gentle with lunch, get it in there, and then aggressive with your biggest meal. If your biggest meal is the dinner in the evening, or if I'm doing something that's a little heavier, like an Italian meal, I'll do a lot of those, one or even two before meals, one or two after meals. Get the food in and out of the colon, broken down in its most efficacious way. And Joe made a good point when we were talking about it. One of the ingredients in Cyberzymes can actually help to break down gluten if there is any gluten in that food.
Yeah, we added the DPP4, which is a form of protease that is the enzyme you want to utilize for gluten. Now, of course, some people, we want them to get off of gluten, but they may have some undigested gluten that's really coating that intestinal tract. I mean, that's something you taught me a while back, was that, hey, just because they didn't eat it that meal doesn't mean it's not in the body, right?
Because if you can't process it, it stays there.
Yeah. And I think what happens over time is that intestinal tract, the environment changes. It's like I always equate it to the lawn for people. They can understand the lawn. They can see it, right? If the lawn's completely worn out, even when water hits, it's going to make puddles and wash everything away. You got to really zone it off. You got to feed it, fertilize it, give it the right nutrients. So over time, it starts to rebuild. Then it can take a little bit of stress if you walk on it or something like that. But can you tie in line a little bit? Because let's take the person that goes through the allopathic program, right? So they have some GI issues, maybe as severe as anal bleeding, maybe GI problems. So they go to the doc and then they send them to the GI doc. What does that look like? Because a lot of these medications, when I started, are over the counter now.
Yeah.
You don't even need a prescription. I think it's very dangerous to allow people to self-medicate.
Exactly. And I still contend that the bulk of the gut issues that we're seeing now, there's a whole bunch of gut guys that are popping up all over the country. Why? Because when Prilosec went over the counter, just as you said, it became so overused and everybody took it as an excuse to eat poorly. We're just going to take this. But, it's beyond the fact that it impedes your mineral absorption, beyond the fact that it's a false sense of security, that it's really not fixing anything, besides the fact that if we're still eating bad, or as you said, Jamie, I went to the gastro doctor, he said, take Prilosec every day. Then he gives you a steroid because that's coming in next. Let's calm this down. We'll give you some prednisone. Or one of the semi-synthetics. We'll use something like Lialda or one of these semi-synthetic semi-steroids. So we take that down. And the real risk factor, whenever you block stomach acid and then you throw a steroid at you, or if this person happens to be using any analgesics at all, it bypasses the stomach and now it's going down and irritating the small intestine. So literally, we're treating the distal colon. We're treating the distal colon. What we can actually cause is ulceration in the small intestine. We can actually push it down. So Prilosec has been linked to ulceration of the small intestine. So you can take a bad situation, palliatively treat it, come back in 6 months and have a worse problem than you started with, because we can't get to the small intestine without opening you up. So it's going to be a big issue, and it's going to take a lot of work then to calm things down. And this is a prime example. If somebody's been used to taking pills, Joe and I talked about this. This is when I'd probably use GI Complete caps. I'd probably go high. I told Joe I go as high as 5 capsules with each meal, and maybe even 5 at bedtime if I have to. But if somebody's attuned to the swallowing of capsules, you may want to use that there where they can take those with them. They can utilize them either sort of like a digestive enzyme on top of all the good work it's going to do in the colon. So that's a good example of using those. I just got to tell you this. I'm going to go back to this again. When you brought out the IgGs, those things are going to revolutionize things for people. That's really going to make a huge difference. Joe brought it up about how nicely flavored it is, how it can mix with the GI Complete. That can turn around a whole world of problems.
Well, I think it was interesting because we were thinking originally, Jamie, that you would use that on it first and then the GI Complete. But Len's his protocol makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, you got to calm people down, right?
Yeah.
The gut-brain connection, people under a lot of stress. And, you mentioned something else, that these medications, the Prilosec, have really put a Band-Aid on people's poor eating habits. I know Joe, one of Joe's favorite comedians, has that commercial. Was that Cheat and Eat, he says?
Yeah.
Larry the Cable Guy?
Larry the Cable Guy. Take your Prilosec and eat whatever you want. That's what I do. And it looks like it, Larry.
It looks like it. Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, it's really scary because a lot of people hear that and say,
and follow it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And say, see, I have a problem. They don't realize the problem, the cause of it is the poor diet.
Yeah.
And that's why we have these wellness weeks going on. We're live at the World of Wellness, the Wine and Wellness Week. It's a great opportunity to learn from all the great presenters we have on here. We have people here to answer any of your questions, free literature, samples, free food. We can't make it any easier for you. It's free to come in here too. You think that we'd have a line around the block, but if you had a street fair with all those cookies and, cheese and nachos and all that stuff, people go crazy over it.
That's right. That's right.
So, folks, it's not a punishment to change your lifestyle. Len, do you mind sharing how old you are?
I'm 70.
Yeah. Len's 70 years old, a cancer survivor. He's in better shape now than I think I met you when you were about 46, 47.
I was about 250 pounds back then, Jamie.
Yeah, you were a big guy. He used to wear the sweaters, and he was tall but big guy. Now he's probably way down in his weight and lives a healthy lifestyle. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a bite of this or that now and then, but it's a consistency of the lifestyle. And I think in the last generation, that's been lost, right? The home cooked meals, the gardens, going to a relative's house for food. Yep. Now it's all about the whole world is like on this hyperdrive. And I think it's speeding up all these things. And my concern is it's not only Prilosec, but omeprazole, right? That used to be a prescription. Prevacid, these are all over the counter. So what kind of damage, and what is the next phase when they go through the prednisone? Then what's after that? Sulfasalazine, methotrexate?
Sulfasalazine, which is one of those semi-synthetics, or if they're still having issues, see the commercials on TV, they're going to a biologic. They're going to go and give you an injection once a month and completely shut down your immune system. And then on top of that, we talked about dealing with stress. You come in with steroids. What's the biggest side effect of steroids? It just stimulates the heck out of your adrenal glands. So when you finally are done with those, your adrenals start into the slow crash. Stress gets exaggerated. And then again, I just want to give a little thumbs up to a prep called Adrenamax. If you're in that world right now and you've been on Prilosec and you've been treating off and on with prednisone, you got to support using adaptogens, support adrenal functionality, or you'll never correct that stress level. That's a critical factor.
Yeah, I love how you go after the cause of these things, because as they keep layering on more and more medications, they're getting further from wellness.
That's right.
At what cost, right? At what cost?
Cost of their life.
Can you tie in? I know we only have a few minutes left. I could talk to him all day long. So can you tie in, because you mentioned autoimmune conditions, because I think people think that they caught something through the air and now they're autoimmune, and the doctors are telling them you got to shut down the immune system. Can you explain a little bit about autoimmune, because I think people are very misinformed about this?
Yeah, this if you take a look and picture the site of activity where this all starts is the small intestine. Okay, right below your stomach, where we dump the food in and the food has to be absorbed. Well, you've got this. We'll look at it like a tube. We've got a tube that is semi-permeable, which means things can open, doors can open, things can go through. The doors can close. That body and that part of the small intestine has to be maintained. Our body produces this substance called secretory IgA. Secretory IgA, which comes from the lymph system.
Kristen, can you get the phone, please?
It comes right in and coats the lining of the small intestine. Now, these are markers that are there to defend you. They're there to open and close to make sure that nothing gets through into the other side. Adjacent to, completely around this tube, is your lymph system. Okay, lymphocytes travel through there. It's a line of defense so that if something gets through that lining in the small intestine, we can intercept it there. And then above that is your blood, your circulatory system. So in that whole world is where if the inflammation starts internally and the body starts to overproduce inflammatory markers that work their way into that lymph system, the body starts to produce what are called inflammatory cytokines. Okay, these are self-attacking entities. They will then be taken up into the bloodstream and circulate. They're looking for weakened spots, the thyroid. They're looking for the lining of the colon. They're looking for women that would have menstrual irregularities. You can look at it even with brain functionality. So those inflammatory markers can actually attack parts of the brain. They can cross the blood-brain barrier and actually cause all kind of inflammation there. So it starts in that part of the body, transports its way into the bloodstream, and it starts on this continuum. And you've got this inflammatory issue that just continues to go up and up. And again, the only way to intercept that, in our opinion, is to go down to the colon and solidify what's going on there. Medicine would say, let's just go into the circulatory system and blast those away. Let's just shut down your immune system so you cannot produce those IgGs or the IgMs that go into that part of the body. You just shut it off. But then you have the long-term issue of suppression of the immune system. I'm going to catch everything that comes down the road, especially things like COVID. Those with autoimmune issues became more and more susceptible to COVID. So it's a problem that is getting more and more prevalent. I think it has to be attuned to the stress levels we're all going through, starting at a younger and younger age. You talked about your friend who's in his 20s. Joe and I were talking about that, saying, you know what? This is an information piece that says you're not safe just being in your 20s. If you don't get a few things under control at that age, this is going to exaggerate itself out and become a big problem later in life. And once you start those biologics, you're on those for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge we face in natural healing and wellness is that people never correlate the cause, right? They're immediately going after what they've been diagnosed with and how they're scared to death that this is going to kill them or give them cancer.
They don't even consider what the cause is. They
No.
just figure it's past that.
Get the symptom to go away. And this young gentleman, like I say, was consuming so much milk that when I worked with him a few years back, he had incredible results.
Mm-hmm.
And I even asked the dad, I was like, did he change? Yeah. You know, over time he got comfortable and he wants to hang out with the friends and, you know, they're getting ice cream and they're doing this and fast foods and Mickey D's and all that. I says, yeah, that stuff may be okay once in a blue moon, but not when you've been diagnosed with colitis. Right now, we need to make sure we are blocking everything that can potentially irritate this. And I think people, when they hear that, they hear what they want, right? Because they're hearing somebody else over here say, oh, no, Len, it's not your fault. This is a disease you have, and your only solution is medication or surgery.
Right.
And they're scared to death. And I even said to them, don't go down this path. And then I just got the call literally at 11:50 today. And Joe can see I was distressed because it's upsetting. I got kids that age. Could you imagine? I mean, you're 70. If you would have had that done 48 years ago, you wouldn't be here with us.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Can I give another thumbs up to another product that, you know, we don't talk about enough? It's in your whole scheme of the products you carry, which is Frontier Fiber. I have been using that for people that are really struggling on some parts, that are maybe living on stool softeners or can't tolerate other forms of fiber. That stuff has turned individuals around. I've had people that have had 3 months of chronic diarrhea, losing weight, and doctors are trying everything to shut down their immune system. And I'll say, you know what? I want you to do a dose of that Frontier Fiber 4 or 5 times a day. Stops diarrhea. Everybody thinks fiber is going to give me loose stool, right? No, it does a balancing act in the colon. And for those that have been on Prilosec, don't just stop. Let me make sure you just don't stop that. You're going to get a rebound reaction. Work with somebody who knows what they're doing to transition you over using things like Probezymes and Frontier Fiber can get you back to where your digestion starts to work proper.
This is why he's the guy.
Yeah, he
geez.
brings up these hidden treasures.
God.
Frontier Fiber. That product is so nice because you can mix with any hot or cold food or beverage, right?
Mhm.
There's no grit, no taste, odorless. You can put in anything, and it'll mix right up, and it'll start working right away.
And he's right. Most people consider fiber
Irritating, yeah.
or something to help them with just constipation, not the opposite. It's just
Hey guys, I got to get running. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks, Dr. Len. We appreciate it. Let Karen know she's in our prayers, buddy, okay?
All right, thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.
As she continues her healing. So there you go, folks. We have some of the world experts coming on. So proud to be a colleague and friend of Dr. Len. And, he brought up this whole stress component.
Yes.
And, underlying cause, right?
Underlying cause.
Chronic stress.
And it always goes one step deeper, right? Every time you think you're there, nope, you got to go a step deeper.
Well, we're excited to have him on, and thanks, Dr. Len. We really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone out there. We have the Wine and Wellness Week going on.
Yeah.
We're here till 7 p.m. on Wednesday.
Today.
And we'll be here the rest of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're finishing up on Saturday, March 12th. We're right here at 2419 Baldwick Road, right in the heart of Pittsburgh. It's on the corner of Noblestown and Baldwick. So if you're coming down, we got free parking in the front, the back, and also in the car wash. We have the snowplow out front right now, working hard, Jeff Coe and the crew. And we have the entire team here. So free smoothies,
Come on
free
down.
healthy
The
food.
bar's open.
And if you come down today, you get a extra special
Santa Claus
care bag to
coming.
take with you since you made it out in the snow.
Yeah, it's only fitting that Santa should be here in the snow.
Absolutely. So thanks for all your support. Have a great day, and God bless.